Okay, everyone, welcome to the International Women's Writing Guild featured author and open mic with the incredibly talented Christina Rivera Cogswell. Sorry, I had a little glitch in my visual here. I'm Lisa St. John with my co-host Katerina Cohen, and we're here with IWWG to invite you to join us and say hello in the chat, obviously, and let you know that we want to thank all our members for their continued support and engagement. IWWG's mission is to encourage and support women writers everywhere. And by joining the Guild, you are supporting each other every day. So, if you would like to join the Guild, I would really recommend it if you're not yet a member, and the link to our membership page is in the chat. Also in the chat, I'm going to put a link to our upcoming workshops and a very special announcement is our summer writing wellness retreat that I'm really excited about. It's going to be up here in Kingston, New York. And if you can, I'd love for you to join us. Excuse me. I also want to let you know that if you are interested in teaching for the Guild or in doing a free write for the Guild, all you have to do is submit a form with your proposal. And the form is very simple. I'm putting that in the chat as well for you. And after our featured author reads and we have a brief Q&A, I'd love for you to put your questions in the chat and we'll have a brief Q&A after Christina reads. And then we'll turn off the recording and begin the open mic. And so the open mic is 3 minutes and you will have only 3 minutes and you can read whatever you like. And what else, Katharina? I'm missing something.
It's just if you are signed up for the open mic, it helps me if I have your full name on the screen. So if you change your screen name from just a first name to the name under which you signed up, that helps me make sure that you're actually here and that I'm highlighting the right person at the right moment.
Great. And if you signed up to read and you're not, Katharina will post the list. And if you're not signed up to read but have changed your mind and would like to, right, you can just direct message Katharina and we'll get you on the open mic if we can. I am so excited to introduce you to Christina Rivera Cogswell. Her book just came out, which is super exciting also. She is an author from Colorado whose girlhood was bordered by coastlines of the Pacific Ocean. Her debut book, My Oceans, was longlisted for the Gray Wolf Press Prize, a finalist for the Siskiyou Prize for New Environmental Literature, and just launched into the world as of March 15th. That's yesterday, with Curbstone Books, an imprint of Northwestern University Press. Christina's essays have won a Pushcart Prize, the John Burroughs Nature Essay Award, and appeared in Orion, The Cut, the Kenyon Review, and Terrain.org, among other places. You can learn more about Christina and My Oceans, Essays of Water, Whales, and Women at ChristinaRivera.com, and all those links will be in the chat momentarily. Christina, so glad to have you here. Thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Lisa. Thanks for the introduction, and Katarina for inviting me. Yeah, I'm super. The book just came out yesterday, and I feel like it's been a flurry of funny like online interactions and posts and stuff, and it's just really nice to like sit down with a group of people and read a little bit and to hear hopefully your words too, and to share this like really comfortable circle with you all. So, thanks for having me. And I'm going to read from I'm going to start with the author's note because I think the way as a woman writer, I think I really wrote this book in fragments, which may not speak to everyone's experience, but it definitely spoke to mine. And it's how the book arrived to me. And it was a fight, to publish it in this shape because people wanted me to shove those little fragments into something that was narratively driven. And that was not what this book wanted to do. And so every time I tried, it didn't work. And finally, but I found I had an agent and an editor who both really believed in it, and they knew that it was an essay collection, and I still think of it as a bunch of fragments that could have been put together in infinite ways. And so it is interesting to read from it. But I'm going to start with this author's note, which speaks a little bit to that fragmented structure. This is not an essay collection, not a gathering of things once scattered. This is a book of essays, each piece born under the same moon. Fragments, yes, because womanhood is fragmented and motherhood is fragmented, and my understanding of my place in nature is one of billions of faceted fragments. Motherhood is not a tidy or linear narrative. It's punctuated. I wrote this book between nap times and meal times and bedtimes. I also wrote this book in pieces because it was through my fragmentation that the distinction between Earth's ocean and my oceans receded. The shape, the movement of these essays was always waves, sometimes crashing, sometimes lapping, sometimes with riptides that pulled me into existential crisis and spit me out. I don't pretend to have answers. If my journey has taught me anything, it's to rigorously confess that I make mistakes, that we have all made so many mistakes that have landed us upon this eroding shoreline of warming waters, melting glaciers, and waning species. And then I'm going to skip a little bit. As for how to read a book of essays, there is no one way. You can follow the threads of their undulating order or reach for the themes that pull you. Humpback whale songs travel ahead and behind paths of migration. When one whale learns the song of another, its own song evolves. As I have woven melody from my ancestors and teachers into these sentences, weave into your own story what resonates. And then, yeah, I think the shape of this book was an interesting challenge, and some of it has only come, some of my realizations have only come in the last week as I'm trying to figure out how to speak about this book. And one thing that I found very interesting is that there's one story in the middle that's called Four Circles, and it's the story of four pregnancies. Of my pregnancies were traumatic and they shattered time for me, and it's broken. It's not a linear structure again. It breaks up time into very interesting segments where they all collapse together. But I just realized recently that I put that in the middle because all the other essays orbit around the births of my children, because motherhood was that instrumental. Motherhood really was my portal to my animalness and my mammalianness. And so, and that's what this book is looking at those interconnections. Okay, so I'm going to start with, well, actually, I might read Act 1, just the inscription, because it's beautiful. It's by Linda Hogan from Solar Stores. Tears have a purpose. They are what we carry of the ocean, and perhaps we must become the sea, give ourselves to it if we are to be transformed. And I think this whole first act is, a deep dive into a lot of grief, a lot of eco grief. It's funny, I have a lot of people reading the book right now, and because it just came out yesterday, and texting me, and there's a lot of people crying, which for me actually is a goal of my work, because I think that for the action that I want to see in the world, we need to feel a lot more emotion and express that emotion. And so I do feel my work I was really trying to present into the lexicon this embodied climate writing. And so I've tried to merge, personal storytelling and especially how climate is interwoven with my body, and how the boundary between my body and the environment really thinned through my experiences of both womanhood and motherhood. Okay, so I'm going to read from the first essay, which is called Blood Moon. And I think I'm going to read, it's a short essay, so I might read the whole thing, and then it kind of ties into the end, and so I might read a little bit more at the end. Blood Moon. My bed offers me no comfort. The skin on my ankles is stretched so tight it might split. My belly is tiger striped by my fingernails scratching an unreachable itch. My daughter is 10 days past her due date, and after a week's battering by waves of false labor, my patience expires. Even if the prodromal contractions retreated, I would not rest. The 8-pound baby sits on my bladder, and on my 9th trip to the bathroom in one night, I give up. I yank a blanket from the bed, my husband unroused. I shuffle to the window, lean against cold glass, and am startled by the wide eyes rise of a near full moon. By the way, I wanted to say too, this full blood moon, it happens every 2.5 years, and it was a few days ago. So it's fun to read from this right now. It's the moon's muted light on my black lawn that makes me think of the leatherback turtle. She comes to me often when I am uncomfortable and restless. Through the window of the dark living room, within the craggy aspen silhouettes that mark the negative space of moonlight, I imagine her 2,000 pounds, bobbing and black ocean, waiting. Once the sea turtle fit in the palm of my hand. That's how I met her, under the thatched grass of a conservation outpost on the Pacific coastline of Guatemala. In the hatchery, I recorded her width and put the slide rule down. When I held her up to my nose, my eyes crossed. She was a miniature of her mother, down to the white ridged lines of her black shell. The hatchling's eyes, hooded, blinked back at mine, but she didn't stop paddling. Her winged arms swam in my hand. I put her down, and like a wind-up toy, she paddled sand. She would not rest until she reached the sea. It made me wonder by whose hand this will to live was wound. But at age 26, with the hatchling in my palm, the answer was still too big for me to fathom. On the eve of a blood moon, my water breaks. In a dimmed room, between pummeling contractions, I crawl on a padded mat under a picture window. I don't make a sound other than low, rumbling outbreaths. I don't open my eyes for the doctor or my husband, but I find the full moon, framed between slow blinks, arcing across black sky. My cervix dilates from 2 to 10 centimeters as the sun, earth, and moon travel independently for 4 hours and 44 minutes to align in total lunar eclipse. The pregnant leatherback turtle has, for over 150 million years, trusted her nest to an earth womb. But what she doesn't know is that today, Guatemala's black sand beaches have warmed to new temperatures, lethal temperatures. A birthing sea turtle is in such a trance that she does not notice the humans behind her. She drops her eggs, covers them, and scoots back into the ocean without looking back. As volunteers, it was our work to unearth her eggs and rebury them in cooler sand behind protective wire. The hatchling's instinct was sharp. When she broke ground in the nursery, the air was cool. By headlamp, I penciled in measurements. I hugged the bucket with 2 arms as I walked to the high tide line. There, I lowered the lip of the bucket. As the hatchlings began their frenzied race, I strolled to the water, turned around, and laid down the beam of my flashlight. If it mimicked moon or horizon light, I wasn't sure, but the hatchlings paddled toward it. If the leatherback hatchling escapes the clutches of lizards and seagulls and trawl nets and plastic debris and coastal chemical runoff, she might swim into a phase of life that scientists call her lost years. And if, in those 10 to 15 years, she evades sharks and engine blades and abandoned ghost nets and oil spills and plastic bag jellyfish and the men who pull turtles from the sea to slash their white abdomens for meat, then she will be 1 in 1 to 10,000 that survives to adulthood. And if she finds a suitable mate from the males left, another 1 in 1 to 10,000. And if she decides not to shake him off when he nibbles her neck, If she lets him crawl on her back and if her eggs ripen, then maybe she will make the pilgrimage home, which may take time. Leatherbacks travel as far as 10,000 miles a year. But she is faithful, faithful to a cycle unbroken for millions of years. In faith, she swims home. Male sea turtles paddle once into the sea and never return. But a female, by some unresolved scientific mystery, maps the land and her mother's phantom path, that she may find her way back. Under the full red moon, my daughter is born. I hold her in my arms, the beginning of this story. 10 toes and 10 fingers, yes, but also 6 million possible futures nestled into her ovaries, futures her body cradled before her own fingerprints formed. With my daughter in my arms, I see reflected in her eyes my journey of pregnancy, labor, and birth. I look deeper and I see my mother's journey and my mother's mother's journey, and like this, the planet lights up in moon-pulled tides and blood-pulling moons. I can't reckon a beginning. I wonder who held the beam of light. With my baby's body nestled into my arms, sunrise comes. Someone draws the curtains of the window back, but I still see the moon framed, burned in memory, a lingering shadow of the hours I was guided only by instinct and a single light in the dark sky. I named my daughter Riva for one of its Spanish translations, From the Shore. The leatherback swam on a planet shared with Triceratops and Spinosaurus. Today, the tracks of birthing leatherbacks on Atlantic, Pacific, and Indian coastlines are scant. The headline I pull up says leatherback turtles may become extinct within 20 years. This conclusion from 12 years ago. Maybe she's out there, my leatherback ghost, bobbing in surf, paled by moonlight, waiting for instinct to tug her forth. Maybe she is waiting for the wave that will carry her closest to the only land she's ever known, to the shadow of her mother's path she has remembered and retraced. Maybe her hooded eye is looking. But on the beach, there are new lights, resort lights and street lights and restaurant lights and house lights and lighthouse lights and bouncing cigarette lights. So many lights, she cannot discern the moon. And her belly, maybe it aches with contractions. Contractions that whisper of urgency, of trance. If only she could reach land and close her eyes. She has traveled so far. She is full and aching. And I think I might never read these together. It's kind of fun. But I returned to this leatherback at the end of the end of the book. The fog, the shore, and the bardos between, and this descent from the surface of things summon her back, the leatherback sea turtle who swam on our planet's oceans through the rise and fall of dinosaurs, through the rise and rise of man. The leatherback who can dive 4,000 feet on a single breath. The leatherback and her pilgrimage from land through seas of lost years back to the shore of her birth. Finding her mother's phantom path on that same dark coast under the same cool moon. North America, before it was baptized with colonizer names, was known to many indigenous people as Turtle Island. The white-crested ridges on the top of the leatherback run in slight curves, lengthwise, longitudinal. Joan Tavis Avant, dear clan mother, further paints this image. One reason is the continent's shape. The North American area has the shape of a turtle shell with a spiny ridge, the Rocky Mountains. The continent also has 13 regions that correspond to the 13 plates on a turtle shell. When I picture this turtle island, it's Linda Hogan's whisper I hear again. There are names each thing has for itself. A turtle's heart is slow to die. Did you know this? I didn't. Turtles die as slowly as they live, and a turtle's heart can beat for 5 days after death, pulsing between lucid life and the quiet of what's next. Under the thatched roof in Guatemala, I met the leatherback hatchling in the palm of my hand. Her winged arms swam. The question she inspired of these inconceivable times still paddle. but in her undying heart, I fathom we won't rest until we reach the sea. Thanks. I can't hear anyone, but
Oh, Christina, thank you. That was so lovely.
oh,
That was
thanks.
so lovely. It really makes me want to read the book. You know, those, especially the sea turtle passages, just amazing. You said, oh, by the way, everyone, if you have a comment or question for Christina, please put it in the chat. Um, you said that it was difficult selling a book of essays. Did you mean as opposed to a novel? Everyone wanted you to smash it together?
Yeah, I mean, I think I am an essayist first, and I will probably always come back. I am working on a novel. I thought it was a fun experiment, and I had a book come to me as a novel. So I think they come to you as they come to you, and they have opinions on how they want to come out in the world. But I do think this was an essay collection, and I started, writing different essays, and I was trying to figure out my voice and trying to figure out my themes, and so writing essay also was just part of my process. But as I was doing that, I had a lot of authors tell me you can't debut with an essay collection, and so it was mostly advice that I was getting from seasoned people who were
Right.
probably, offering me pretty sound advice because I kept thinking I can do it though. Like I'll do it differently. And I still believe that there is like I work with teenagers a lot and or at least for 15 years in the field of experiential education, and I did a lot of writing with them, and I feel like they naturally were inclined to write experimental essays and hermit crab essays and fragmented pieces. And so I do, and I don't think it's just lack of attention span, but I think that attention span piece also is conducive to an environment where essay collections do have a place in the world and a growing place in the world. And I think I was making that argument, but it's still emerging. I was kind of hoping that 3 years ago that, that we would be here and there would be a lot more essay collections in the world right now. And I bet on that, and that didn't necessarily happen. And I find that even right now, as I'm, sharing this book with my community, even, no one in my entire town has read an essay collection. So I have to teach people how to read them. Like all of our literary people have read essay collections, but, they're like, oh, I can't wait to just sit down with this and read it all night. And I'm like, that's not how essay collections work. Actually, I really think essay collections or essays, there's a lot of white space that is meant to inspire questions and meant to have you engage with the material and be reflective and make you pause. Like I think there's, after every essay I read, I want to put the book down and sit with it and not turn pages. And so it's a very different reading experience. And I have to teach people that right now I'm learning that I really have to teach people how to read an essay collection, which is that there's lots of different ways, and then you can read two essay. I mean, I have so many essay collections, and I'll read 2 or 3 essays and I'll put it down and I'll come back to it like 6 months later and I'll read 3 more and then I'll read the first one and the end one together and I'll reread an essay, one essay that really hit me in the heart like 3 times, and it's just a very different reading experience. But anyway, yeah, so the story is that I actually was in a class and the teacher, and I had questions for the teacher because I kept asking everyone, being like, I think this is an essay collection. What do I do and how do I put it together? And he said, I have an agent friend. Why don't you ask her? And I was like, oh, okay. And so I put together all my questions and I just popped her off the email because I didn't want to think about it too much and I didn't want to be scared of her. And she wrote back and said, I do not have time to answer these questions. She was like, but I had included a draft of a query letter, and she said, but I am interested in your query, so please send me some of your pages. And so I sent her 50 pages. And another funny, and she read the 50 pages and she said, oh, I forgot. She actually said, yeah, the common logic is that you need to make this narrative. I'm just going to tell you that. And then she read the 50 pages and she said, this is an essay collection. And I was like, amazing. Like someone who like sees what I see. Um, And then when we went on submission, it was a lot of the same kind of reaction. People being like, "Can you make this narrative? Is this memoir? Like, can you rewrite it and resubmit it?" And a narrative form, which I tried to do a little, I just couldn't. Like, I kept trying, and it just didn't work. And then they didn't accept it anyway. And I was reluctant to push it too hard. And I just felt like really strongly that it is reflective. It is fragmented because it is a motherhood story and it is a womanhood story. And both those things are fragmented. And like, I can't make this narrative. So it was a struggle, the publishing process. I knew from the beginning it would probably be better with a small press, but of course your agents tend to get you hopeful that like that other people might see other opportunities. Anyway, we ended up going on a second round of submission with smaller presses, and we had a few different offers pretty quickly. And so that was reassuring, and it did make me feel like, oh, I knew that it was going to be, a university or an academic press that was going to want this book. So that was confirming. And then when and I found an editor, Marissa Siegel, who, used to run the Rumpus. And so she just said, this is an essay collection. And she was the first person to be like, 100%, this is an essay collection. It should be no other shape. And so having those two people, my agent and my publisher, and my editor, both fully believe in that. I needed that. There were times where I was bending, and they always held me up and they said, "Yep, you're right." And they're both women who identify as mother and women too. So I found that interesting.
It is. And you think, what do you mean there are no essay collections? But we've got David Sedaris, we've got,
Mm.
Margaret Atwood, of course we have essay collections,
I
but
don't think people really realize that those are essay collections necessarily because they're not marketed as that. Or, I mean, and most of those people were famous too before they.
I
So it's
guess
like it's
that's the
hard to.
thing. And the other thing is we don't teach essay or
Yeah.
short story in public high school anyway. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? Like if we teach an essay, it's just by itself. It's not a book of essays.
Yeah.
And so teaching people how to read an essay, a book of essays is
Yeah.
fascinating. That's
Yeah.
that's a really interesting angle
Yeah.
to it all. Um, I have another question, but I
Sure.
have one in the chat that says, how did you first make your acquaintance with the sea turtle and fall in love with her?
um, I think so it was in Costa Rica, and oh, I get the two trips. So I worked in experience, like I said, in experiential education. So I took small groups of students to very remote locations all over the world for over a decade. And so, and we usually did like interesting volunteering stints for like a month at a time. So we worked with that turtle hatchery, one in Costa Rica and one in Guatemala for like a month each. And the work was so fascinating because, like I said, you were walking down you're patrolling the beach at night, trying to make sure that poachers don't steal the nests. So you're just walking down the beach, and you take these shifts, and you sleep on the beach, which is also awesome. You're just sleeping on a tarp underneath, the moon, and then people tap on your shoulder, and you get up and you walk along the beach, and you look for Jeep tracks. That's how big the leatherback turtles are. And so they're enormous. And we were not just doing leatherback turtles, which are the biggest sea turtle. We were doing different species. And so there are also smaller ones, but still the turtles are huge. And then you see if you find the turtle or the turtle tracks, you follow the tracks up to the nest, and then you kind of create a barrier, and then you slowly dig them up and transfer them very gently into a bucket, and then we would take them to the hatchery and put them back into the sand and cover them up and do all the data collection and stuff. But yeah, it was amazing. And I feel like I've been to Mexico and a few places since then. I feel like those hatcheries are becoming very popular, and lots of places you can see the work that they're doing, and they oftentimes let you witness those little turtles like are coming out and like going into the ocean right around sunset. So and it's like it's such a touching experience. I mean, all of my experiences with marine life have been tremendously effective. Like they create such experiences of awe and wonder. And I think that's what I was trying to write into in this book, and just to like camp out in those moments too.
Oh, gorgeous, gorgeous. There's a comment from Katharina, and she said, Alexander Chi says, an essay collection is something an agent will sell as a favor to an established author,
Oh,
not
wow.
because it will make anyone any money, end
Yeah.
quote. And she said, it's so great that you got to debut with one. Bravo. It really speaks to how compelling your book is.
Thanks. I want to give props to Alexander Chi too, because uh, the only reason I had 50 pages to put together is I took his course about putting an essay collection together. Katerina, maybe you took it too, but it was a really cool course. And he said, put your work together and see how it starts talking to each other. And so that's the only reason I had put, my 6 essays together and started to mess around with the order and started to like pick up and see what words were repeating, what themes were repeating, and how the pieces were talking to each other. And so that's why I had 50 pages to share with my agent. Although,
Oh, go
although
ahead.
this is a funny story, because I had also taken a class on writing query letters. And so I had created this query letter, but it was, a projection of my project. It wasn't actually what I had completed. And because I wasn't, had not sent it out to anyone yet, when I had included it when I sent it to the agent, and she kind of read the first 50 pages, and then she's like, this is great. Can I see the whole manuscript? Like, I'd like to see every 70,000 words. And I was like, oh, this is the part where I have to tell you, I don't have 70,000 words. Like, that was a lie. That was my goal. We're not there yet. And she was like, it's okay. Send me everything you have. And I still had to send her 50 more pages, because I think I had 100 pages at that time, but it was brutal.
That's
But it was nice that
great.
she was patient too, and willing to wait as I finished those essays. And then, I tend to overdo things too. And I did with that first submission. I think we had like 32 essays in the first round, and we had no subtitle. It was still called My Oceans, but it was much broader. And then when we went on the second round of submission, that's when we really tied in the ocean theme, and we took out some, there were more feminism pieces, there were more different animal pieces, and we really narrowed in on the marine mammal. And that's when and so it's just such a process. It's always coming together. And like I said, right now, even I'm still seeing it come together in ways that I didn't realize were already
That's
embedded.
fascinating. It's a lot. Primarily a poet, and it's a lot like putting a book of
Mm.
poetry together. Who
Yeah,
goes with what? Who's,
yeah,
there are other sections. Who goes,
yeah.
Um, I had another quick question, if I could,
Mhm.
about the author's note.
Yeah.
Is that an idea that your agent or editor or publisher had for you to do, or is that something you wanted to do? And when does the author's note get written?
Oh, I'm so glad you asked that, because they didn't want it. I mean, I felt like it suddenly felt very important to me. Um, there's a few things in here. Well, I'm working with a lot of facts, and I knew that facts shift, and I was like, oh, how do I capture scientific facts when they're shifting constantly? So I needed that disclaimer. Um, and then, yeah, that whole first part about it being fragment, it was a little bit of a middle finger to the whole industry too, that had been like this is the way it has to be, like all these people,
Right,
I had to make it narrative. And it took me to this point to be like, here's the book, and it's not narrative, it's not linear, because that is
right.
an experience of motherhood or womanhood. And it was a statement, and it felt really good to write that paragraph. And then this was a really exciting success for me too. I don't so um in the United States, it's common practice to lowercase the names of species. And so, when I wrote the book, I could not do that. They're just, it was like, for me, it was like a feeling of like respect or something. And so I capitalized every species. And every time I published an excerpt or an essay, the editor, of course, took it out, um, and it always looked and just felt really weird to me. And then real like enormous props to my copy editor at Northwestern. She said, okay, this is, like it's clear you've done something against all societal norms. like, like we, like tell me, like, let's get on the phone and talk about it. And I kind of like, and it's funny because I had like more of an emotional reason, but as a copy editor, and she helped me write this, like, following a growing consensus among many British organizations and the International Union for Conservation of Nature, because it is a new shift that's already happening in England that just hasn't come here yet. I'm capitalizing the common names of species in English. This both disambiguates because a giant squid is not necessarily a giant squid. It conveys the respect of proper nouns to genetically distinct populations. And so, but for her, it was just a matter of clarity because a giant squid is not necessarily a giant squid. And like that just made sense to, her mind. And it does make sense, especially to most scientific minds. And so she bought in and she was like, we're changing our style guide. And that was just such a big win for me. And then I have since published one essay in the cut. In the cut editor, I gave her the same. I just explained, and she said, "Yeah, we're going to do it." And I was like, "This is amazing!" So I'm really excited for this small shift, cultural shift, or literary shift, and helping contribute to it because I don't know why it means something to me, but it does.
It's so exciting. That's so exciting. It's
Um,
wonderful. It's
Thanks.
wonderful. You could change it all. We could all do that now.
Yeah, I mean, I hope it opens some gates. And I did ask my copy editor at Northwestern, and she said this is our new style guide. This is what we're doing now. And I'm like, oh, okay, cool. So, but yeah, the author's note, I wrote it. It was the last thing I wrote, other than maybe I think even the acknowledgments I had already written. So it was the last thing I wrote, and I submitted it, and my editor was like, I don't think we need this. And I was like, I feel strongly about it. And so we shortened it, I think. Um, and I want to say that I actually like ran it by some people and collected some feedback and made an argument for why it should be included. And then they kind of conceded. But it still feels so important to me. So I'm glad you asked that question.
That's so wonderful.
Thanks.
That's so wonderful. I just love it. I can't wait for my copy. I'm so excited. Um,
I mean,
and
it's funny because
everyone,
I don't love author's notes in general, and so I wanted it to be very compact and just concise and one page. And yeah,
yeah,
I mean, interrupt you though.
I'm so glad you read it. That's great. And now we get the backstory of it, which is really exciting. Um, okay. Christina Rivera's work is in, or all her links are in the chat. So follow her and buy the book. And this is beyond exciting. And I can't believe you're working on a novel now, which is even cooler. It's always good. Um, and International Women's Writing Guild wants to thank you so much, Christina, for being here and for joining us. And thank you to all our members. If you came in a little bit late, there is I'm going to put a link in the chat again to not only our upcoming workshops online, which thanks to the Zoom boom, I guess, because of COVID, have been prospering, but also our in-person wellness and writing retreat that's coming up this summer. So those links are in the chat too. And Christina, I hope you have a chance to look through the chat and see all the lovely things people are saying. And by the oceans. I'm just thrilled, and I'm really excited for you for so many reasons. Thank you for being here.
Oh, thanks so much. And by the way, there are some backlogs of the book that's shorted a little in some places, but if you get it from my local bookstore, I know they have copies. And if you go to ChristinaRivera.com, you can get it there. And I'm also sending out these like cute little bookmarks. My daughter and I collaged this together, and it's like
Nice.
there's a piece of text that's from the book, and then there's like a piece from my journal. And it's funny, she actually pulled out this page from my recycle bin, and it matched the page in my journal. Like wild, it's some wild coincidence. And so there's our little collage with like the Selkie woman reading. And I'm also setting up these little pencils too for anyone that orders just from my bookstore. It's called The Bookworm in Edwards, and they say dolphinately not crying.
Oh.
And welcome to the deep end, and less small talk, more porpoise. So I mean, I think you have to make light and keep it fun, especially because the eco-green part can get kind of heavy.
Right, right. And there's no reason that we can't. Yeah, exactly. Exactly. You said it. You said it.
But I'm excited to hear everyone else read too. So.
Thank you again. Now, what I'm not seeing is the Bookworm store. Is that on your website?
I could put a link in the chat.
Okay.
But yeah, it is on my website. If you go to my website, there's kind of like Amazon, bookshop.org, Barnes and Noble or whatever. And in the middle, it says the Bookworm comes with, like.
Oh, okay. It does have it on there. All right, good.
It says like it comes with a pencil and a bookmark and stuff. So
Excellent.
my fun little
Christina Rivera Cogswell, thank you so much for being here.
Thanks.
Everyone, yay. Congratulations.
Thanks.